In five. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. We're streaming on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Meet my morning stars, Andre. Hey, Robert. Hey, sending you all so much love today. Everybody, like and share, like and share. We are on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. I need you to like and subscribe there and then go to the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. Become my friend there. That's the only place where I can accept friendships. But I want to continue to grow the community. And indeed, it has been growing. And I want to thank you for that. So please, everybody, also share the show with at least one person today. Share the show. Share the show. We have some of the most, candid political conversation I'm hearing and I'm seeing in social media that you hear anywhere. So, we're going to get right to it. Let's talk about this presidential race. We are on the verge of the Republican National Convention. That's next week in Minneapolis. In Milwaukee. The M's, I'm getting them all confused. Minneapolis, I know you don't want them, but that's all right. We're all Americans here. We just have a difference of opinion. Shirley from beautiful Philadelphia, how you doing, sweetie? And then a month later, we will be gathering in Chicago. The weekend before, however, we will be Attorney C.K. Hoffler, the organization of which you are the chair. Rainbow Push will be hosting our international conference the 15th, the 16th, and the 17th, leading into the Democratic Convention. We do hope, Alex, from If Not Now Chicago, that you will use Rainbow Push, our headquarters, as your home. We have a lot of people who are seeking to march, who are seeking to meet, and you need a physical place to be. And Reverend Jackson, given his history as an organizer, indeed, that is why Dr. King hired him. And the name of our building has been, since we moved in more than 50 years ago, Dr. King's Workshop. It is because physically people need a place to meet and to talk and to find common cause with folks, and even to argue and go back and forth, because we've got a lot of issues to resolve. We're going to be talking about why it is that it's who's supporting President Biden, who's supporting him staying in the race. We've got Tennessee State Representative G.K. Hardaway. How you doing? Sending you so much love. How you doing? Oh, you gotta come off mute. How
All
are
right,
you today?
I want everyone to hear these T's. Santita.
I love, you know what, I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, we've got a lot to talk about, and then in the next hour, we're going to talk about these blitz primaries, which a lot of the oligarchs, if you will, they are saying, what we can do is have Oprah Winfrey and the Obamas and all of the celebrities come and have basically a town hall meeting, and that's how we're going to decide who the nominee is going to be. All because the oligarchs, the wealthy funders of the party, have said, you know what? We don't feel comfortable with Biden. Now, mind you, Biden got 14 million votes. 14 million votes. 14 million. He has 86% of the delegates. As I tip my hat to uncommitted. The fact is, overwhelmingly, he is the choice of Democrats. He is. That's how the system works. If you want to change the system, I hear you get in it and get involved. But this is the system that we've got. You can't change the rules midstream. So how does it make you feel when you see the wealthy funders, the co-owner of Netflix, Abigail Disney, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? They see this debate and they say, oh, wait a minute. We got to get rid of the nominee. We're going to make the decision. Who runs this party? You keep telling me you need my votes. What's the deal? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about in the next hour. We'll mix it up here. You can talk about that here too. But what is it about Biden that has Black people who've become the firewall, the Congressional Black Caucus, the Hispanic Caucus? A lot of the working people have been his firewall. We are the firewall. And yet, conservative Democrats, which Vice President Biden, Senator Biden, and President Biden, he has not ruled, he has not governed that way. But his whole career, he's been a centrist. He's been to the right of centrist, really part of the right wing of the Democratic Party. And yet now it's the progressives and the liberals who might be saving him. You can't make this stuff up. That's why I kind of listened to my father, I absolutely listen to him when it comes to politics. He said, wait a minute, keep on living. Uh, Blink your eyes, it's a whole new world. So keep your mouth shut. Don't let your mouth write a check you cannot cash. Don't say who you're not going to support because those things change. Amen. Amen. We have a tremendous panel. And from various backgrounds, you know how we do on the Santita Jackson Show. We've got Alex Nelson of If Not Now Chicago, these brave young Jewish activists who are really, I don't want to limit the scope of your group, because when I'm trying to get in touch with Palestinian activists and young Black activists, you all are working with each other, Asian activists. It's a new world, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, chair of Rainbow Push. These young people are working with each other. Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway, they're working with each other and they're working to change the world. And as long as I have this platform, I'm going to help you do it. You do it peacefully, do it in the right way. Chaparral Faulkner Wells, hey, Black people are the firewall and he won't support any of our agendas. Well, there's something to be said for that. Maybe this is a time to press. D. Ray, how you doing, sweetie? Shirley from beautiful Philadelphia. Robert, Andre, let's get right to it. I want to ask you what it is. Let me start with you because you're an elected official. Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway, indeed. Let me to fully disclose, Rainbow Push Memphis, longtime supporter. We've been working together a long time. Are you surprised by the fact that Blacks are the firewall for President Biden? And what do you think? Why do you think we're so protective of him? Is it personal? Is it political? Is it a mixture of the two? Because we don't like to see anyone pummeled. The underdog we tend to go with, but there's also something unsettling about the funders of the party getting upset and then they want to overthrow everyone's votes. Well, I'm just speculating here. State Representative Hardaway.
Yeah, I think you make several good cogent points. The bottom line is you can have all the money in the world, but at the end of the day, you got to count the votes. And Black folks have been the bulk of the loyal block of votes for the Democratic Party over the past few decades, going back to Kennedy days. So what I would suggest to you is that Black folks need to do this. Number one, we need to figure out what the agenda is and the priorities are for that agenda. I don't think there's any doubt about which way we're going. We're going to ride with Biden until Kamala is ready to take the reins. And if there's going to be a change in the rules, I promise you, there'll be a change in the leadership for the party. We're not going for that. We've paid the price to put the Democratic Party in the shape that it's in and the position that it's in. And it's time for us to reap the benefits. We've been patient. We've seen some of our priorities move down on the agenda. And this time around, we got to have it. If we look at what happened during the Obama presidency, there were things that we needed that were not prioritized, that we needed as a people. And we can't afford to do that this time. We moved out of the way and we delayed some of our needs. And that's one reason that we're in the shape we're in terms of voting rights. We didn't have a chance to shore up the Voting Rights Act. Even though the opportunity was there, we didn't take the chance to shore it up. Some of the matters dealing with economic development, with the things that we should have had in place to address affordable, adequate housing. The same when it comes to educational opportunities. The efforts to roll back our progress by revoking some of the affirmative action programs right here in Tennessee. Tennessee State University is under siege. We've had a change in not just the leadership in terms of our president, but we've had our whole board replaced, the governing board. And a lot of these things we could have anticipated, and some we did, but we could have put a firewall in terms of new regulations from the different agencies, in terms of statutes, and in terms of we've got to learn from experience that our friends on the other side of the aisle have decided that constitutional amendments are important for when their power starts to wane, because it takes a whole lot more to undo them than it does to change a typical statute or a regulatory law.
Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway, because the land grant black colleges are $16 billion in arrears. What could we do with that money? And I think that that's one of the critical lessons of the Obama years, quite frankly. Alex Nelson, many people pump the brakes. Progressives pump the brakes, certainly black people, just to protect the first black president. But we did it to our detriment, quite frankly. And we were told to, because we said, we got to protect him. But it's not just about the him, it's the them. And so we are now, people are always inclined, particularly on black folks, to change the rules. And I would not just, if it happens to black folks today, it's going to happen to everybody else tomorrow or in a few more tomorrows, because power concedes nothing without demand. It's always a fight, Alex. So when you look at where we are now, the people who are lining up to support President Biden, and certainly he was at a black church this weekend. He met with the CBC, the Congressional Black Caucus. The Hispanic Caucus is lining up behind him. You're seeing the progressives. You're seeing a lot of people who have been very disappointed, who've expressed that, and yet they're saying, I've even spoken to some people from If Not Now who said, I've got some profound problems with him, but the way they're doing this is giving me cause to pause. What do you see?
It's generally it's a huge topic of debate amongst my co-organizers and I. It was certainly an interesting thought exercise, and I definitely think that there are people who are in alignment with a lot of the folks you just mentioned, a lot of the progressives, and a lot of the people who are sticking with Biden, not because they particularly like Biden. But simply because it's like we've gone through the majority of the primary process, and this is the candidate that we were given. So this is the candidate that we feel we now need to move forward with. This is coming up a lot because my personal congressional representative is one of the ones that has stepped forward and pretty explicitly said that President Biden needs to step down. And that's pretty interesting because he's a pretty moderate white guy Democrat. He's unremarkable in a lot of ways. He toes the line. He doesn't step out. So the fact that he came out early and adamantly for this was a little bit jarring for us. And that's why we've had so much conversation. And I do think there is something to be said for a lot of the folks that are pushing for this are not folks that have necessarily been invested in coalitional power building outside of their own immediate, proximity. Whereas you've got folks like Representatives Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Representative Ilhan Omar, whom, as you said, have been pretty vocal in their disappointments with the Biden administration, who were part of the fleet of representatives that were brought into office in 2018 in the first midterm elections in the Trump presidency, and were sort of this beacon of light, this sort of new progressive era that hopefully we could fight for and advocate for. And it's the debate that goes back and forth is, are they betraying their progressive values by standing with Biden, or do they understand that how power building works and like where you need to fight and where you need to push and where you need to just step in line? As I said to you yesterday, I think that one area in which we just sort of need to do broad, and that's not a reflection on the show, of course, but just generally in our national education and our conversation, I think we need to do a better job of emphasizing to folks that when you vote for an administration and not just an individual. So, you're voting for who do you want to be Attorney General, Secretary of Education, Secretary of Labor, Secretary of the Treasury, all of these things. And so when you look at it like that, the idea of a Biden administration becomes significantly more palatable than a Trump administration. But it is to the Democratic Party's detriment that we are now in this pretty rough position. And I think that Democratic Party leadership, including President Biden himself, but of course, various staff and power players at the DNC could have done a lot of work to remediate, be proactive, and avoiding the situation we find ourselves in right now.
Well, I mean, it's interesting to see the press secretary taking all of the incoming fire um, when we know that there has been an issue for some time. You know, we've known that. That's why people were on tenterhooks when we were waiting to see how he was going to perform. We see how performative politics is, you know, at the State of the Union. Will he make it through the address? And people were really excited by his energy and his vim and his vigor. And so when we saw what we saw almost 2 weeks ago, it was disheartening and it was frightening because, you know, I've said this many times, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, the president of the United States, whether you vote for him and eventually her, they represent so much more than themselves. They represent a country, and you depend upon them being physically strong, mentally capable, because it somehow or another, whether we like to admit it or not, it really does back up on us. And so, and FDR, when we were psychologically and economically and spiritually depressed, didn't let you know he was in a wheelchair. You know, and his sons would hold him up at the lectern when he would speak. And if you look at pictures of him, you'd see their sons literally, because his sons were literally holding him up. And, you know, we didn't hear about President Wilson's stroke. You know, we didn't hear about it. And of course, it was a different age, and we certainly did not know that John F. Kennedy was as ill as he was. I mean, many in his family never expected him to live to maturity because he had been a very sickly boy, and then he had Addison's disease and other afflictions. But that having been said, looking back, one of the great presidents, probably the best known American president in modern times, John Kennedy. So there it is. What do you make of the stalwart Black support in particular, for President Biden?
Well, Santita, I'm one of those people who strongly support Biden. And I will say at the inception, when he ran in 2020, I can't say that I thought that I was really enthusiastic about Joe Biden, but I felt that he was the candidate that would be able to defeat Donald Trump. And from my standpoint, I was not prepared and could not stand by without casting my vote to see Donald Trump serve in office for another 4 years. That was in 2020. So for many, President Biden, when he put Kamala Harris on the ticket, for me, like many Black women, not all, but like many Black women, that cemented it for me. And so I was going to be Biden. I had concerns about President Biden's articulation when he was vice president of the United States, because he oftentimes put his foot in his mouth. You know, he said things. That's just the nature of the beast. But when he became president, yes, I was concerned not about his age, but I was concerned about his ability to articulate in a way that would grasp and that would seize the attention of the American public and let us know, here's our commander in chief. He can handle it. I understand the presidency is more than about one person. He's got machinery behind him. So it really and Alex, you kind of made that point where it's not just about that individual. It's about the party. It's about the machinery. It's about the office of the president. So I felt that, you know, I was very committed. I still am committed, but that debate was literally painful for me, Santita. I could not watch it in its entirety. I had to turn it off, and I subsequently watched it in its entirety. But as it was going on, I started watching it, and then I just couldn't. And the distress that I felt, the pain literally that I felt, was because our president, our commander in chief, was suffering. I didn't know if it was just a bad day. You know, my parents are in their 80s. We know plenty of people who are in their 80s who are vibrant and ready to do the job, like Biden has proven to be. But he had a bad day. He had an awful day. He had a horrendous day. He had a horrific day. It was awful. And so that moment for me was difficult because I wanted to make sure that my president wasn't suffering a medical issue. I understand having a bad day. We all have bad days. but I didn't know if it was a medical issue. And if so, I wanted that to be paid attention to. I wanted that to be addressed. So, but what inspired me to say, yeah, I'm concerned, I'm praying for him, I want our commander in chief to be okay, et cetera, et cetera. But what inspired me to continue my support of the Biden-Harris ticket was when I listened to what former President Donald Trump said, his delivery, the lies, the inconsistencies, the misrepresentation. It took me right back to the reason why in 2020 I supported the Biden-Harris ticket. Forget about the events of January 6th. I didn't even reach that analysis. Forget about the 34 the conviction on 34 counts. As a lawyer, I didn't even reach that analysis. For me to have the reaction that I had, it was listening to him and saying, oh my goodness, no. I am not going to ever support this person. Forget about the black jobs. Forget about the insult, to add insult to injury, that permeated throughout his comments. I just knew that if our president is able for another 4 years, and it's his decision, let's be clear, no one's going to persuade him to step down. Not a single soul, probably not even his wife. It's going to be President Joe Biden who's going to decide, yes, I'm up for it, or no, I'm not. So I am one of those persons who is supporting him. I recognize the frailties of his position, but I also recognize something else. My support doesn't mean that I'm pleased with everything that's happened in his 4-year tenure. I'm not pleased with the fact that we don't have a Voting Rights Act. I'm not pleased with the fact that we don't have a George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. I'm not pleased with our intervention in Gaza. There are many things I'm not pleased with. But in the world of politics, you're not going to get everything you want. And I think that this is an opportunity for us to recalibrate. Again, we know who's going to save President Biden. It's African Americans, and it's going to be, as one demographic, Black women. We already know this. We don't need to do analytical studies and research and everything. We know that's what it's going to be. The strongest demographic that's going to support him is going to be Black women. And I'm one of them, so I get it. But that doesn't mean that we don't fight and we don't push for the things that are incredibly important to us, because we're going to save him again, just as we saved him in South Carolina in 2020. So we know that's going to happen, but we have to look at what happens if he does not win, and how do we position ourselves, just as we did in 2020, to try to get the things that are important to our communities. This is a critical time, Santita. So it doesn't surprise me that the Congressional Black Caucus, it doesn't surprise me that the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, it doesn't surprise me that other progressive and liberal groups are standing behind him. Why? Because they're probably going through a similar analysis as I went through and said, I just can't fathom the unfathomable for us is what would happen during another Trump presidency. And that is a motivating factor for many. It wasn't, ironically, as much of a motivating factor for me prior to the presidential debate. When I saw the presidential debate, Santita, it took it over the top for me. So it's not that I'm holding my nose. I recognize there are many things that I was unhappy with, but for me, the best ticket right now, and I'm not saying this on behalf of Rainbow Push, I'm not saying this on behalf of the National Bar, I'm not saying this on behalf of AIB. These are all organizations I'm affiliated with, either on the board or chairing or whatever. I'm saying this on behalf of C.K. Hoffler. That's my position on this.
Well, I mean, Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway, many Democrats, well, the data has been showing that there has been a migration of Blacks away from the Democratic Party. Many of them have been going, and particularly Black men have been going to President Trump, the former President Trump. Many Democrats will deny that, but I'm in Chicago and I travel and I listen to people and see them, and I'm hearing that. But we're also seeing more and more beyond that. More and more Americans are abandoning the two-party system. 27% of Americans, according to Gallup, are Democrat, 27% are Republican. The Republican numbers have risen by 2 points. Democratic numbers have fallen by 2 points. But the plurality of Americans, 44%, are independent. So, we're living in a very, very interesting time. What are you seeing? Because the fact is, when you look at Black support, while um, we are the firewall of the party, that was something that Reverend Jackson mined and helped America and Black people in particular to see when he ran for president in the 80s. He was like, no, we're the backbone of the party. That's why when the liberal titans of the party came in and supported um, someone who was not Harold Washington, it was so insulting. It pushed him to run. I was like, you can't expect my vote. I can't get out here and mine these votes for you, and then you do not support me. And you just heard Attorney Hoffler give us a list of things that have bothered people. I mean, I'm just seeing Tammy Jackson. She said, "I'm a Black woman from Chicago, and I will not vote." Her emphasis for Biden, and I'm very vocal in conversations about my feelings and my vote. D. Ray followed up with, "Trump is a mean, diabolical werewolf." Well, I don't think he's a werewolf. I hear you. And Chaparral says, "CK, Biden still owes all the promises to Black folk. The only constituency that he has failed to come through on his promises for." These are the things that we're hearing. What did Dr. D say? I'm the weather girl. I didn't bring the rain. I'm just letting you know that
I disagree
the
with
clouds
that.
are here.
I agree with Chappelle that, like I said, civil rights, certain voting rights, policing reform, and certain issues with Gaza and immigration. I have a particular view, and I'm not satisfied. But there have been a lot of other things. There are a lot of great things that the Biden administration has done. They don't get credit for from that have impacted in a positive way our community, minority communities, without a question. It's just that I felt that this was going to be the time for a Voting Rights Act and Policing Act. But the one thing we have to realize, Congress, the House of Representatives and the Senate have a lot to do with that. Biden can't deliver legislation if it's not presented to him to sign. What he can do via executive orders, he can do more. And I am disappointed that he hasn't done more, but he has done some things. But I submit to those people who are criticizing Biden, you gonna vote for Trump? Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Wow. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Or are you gonna vote for Trump, or are you gonna stay home? Really? And not exercise your right to vote? So I do understand and get, and I have some trepidation on those issues too. But we have to sometimes be real with the options that we have today. I really wish we had different options. How about that? But we don't. When I had to wake up and realize, Santita, these are the options. Those two men, older men. Trump is as frail intellectually as Biden is. If Biden is frail intellectually, so is Trump in terms of their capabilities. Trump just has a better way of presenting, or he did at that debate, because he stuck to just making it up as he went along. He was just making up stuff as he went along. And that's a good way for him to operate, because he's good at making up stuff as he goes along. He didn't have to answer your question. He just kind of just spoke.
So, but you know what? I mean, I think that even having said that, I think that the White House would have gone a long way. Everybody on the panel, Alex Nelson and Attorney Hoffler and Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway. And let me address this to you, because I know you can't stay with us much longer. Representative Hardaway, if they had just been honest about the fact that he's struggling, age has not been the issue. The most popular elected official in the United States is Bernie Sanders, who had a heart attack when he was running for president. People were disappointed that he wasn't going to throw his hat back in the ring. So this whole ageist argument was really false. And what we saw, and you know this, Attorney Hoffler, and I'm from a public family. I've got a father who's got Parkinson's. I also saw up close and personal Muhammad Ali, who was a close personal friend, and other people who've had Parkinson's, and other people who've had neurological issues. Okay, if that's what you got, or if you have something else, just say it. Tell us how you're living with it, and we can move on. Absolutely. What did Reverend Jackson said in 1984 in San Francisco? I can't shake it, because he said it one time, CK. He said it one time, Alex. Representative Hardaway, he said it one time, I never forgot it. He said, "I'd rather have Roosevelt in a wheelchair than Reagan on a horse."
Oh, absolutely. And I'll just reiterate that we have a choice now between the better agenda with what up to now may be the worst candidate. I expect him to prove himself the next debate if that happens. But I'd rather understand that here's a Biden team, and Kamala is waiting in the wings, and our agenda is in our hands. The one thing I've learned in public service is every now and then you get a chance to be the kingmaker. This is an opportunity for us to make the king again, but also to ensure that the agenda that Black folks have been pushing to the side for these many years, that we get it done. We can't afford for the generation behind us to be in a worse situation in terms of civil rights, in terms of economics, in terms of educational opportunities. All of the guide rails that were in place, my Republican colleagues have been successful in just destroying them. Mm-hmm. And if we're going to ensure that we hold the line now and start to regain the footing in terms of affirmative action, in terms of equal opportunities in education, in terms of health care, that we hold the line, everything, all of the social determinants which make it possible for us to have quality of life are at risk. We need to understand that. And the reality is that we have two choices. We can go with Donald Trump, who is the greatest shyster that has ever taken the pledge for the presidency, or we can go with a Biden who has what I would say is the best team that we've seen assembled in quite a while. I'm not just voting and supporting Biden. I'm voting and supporting a Kamala Harris. I'm voting and supporting someone that is going to be obligated and will be in a position to give Black folks the agenda that they need in order to ensure that our children have those opportunities that we fought for, our parents fought and died for, these many years. We are literally repeating history with different players, the same as we did after the Civil War, when people of color were blamed for white folks doing badly. And we had Reconstruction to move to post-Reconstruction, where everything was unraveled and undone. We're having the same thing happen now post-Obama, where our progress has been not just halted, but been reversed. And the same way that we had to fight back after post-Reconstruction to get where we are today, we're going to have to fight to hold the line, or we're going to go through the same struggle. Our children are going to go through the same struggle. But this is Reconstruction, post-Reconstruction 2.0 that we're living through now.
And it's amazing because my father, as a Southerner, that is what he sees. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, because the reference point, I think Attorney Hoffler and Alex Nelson, for those people who are from the South, they see the Civil War differently than we do in the North. You know, and their pivot point, those who are our elders, those who are the youth, the pivot point for them, their head is on the swivel, and the swivel is the Civil War. And this is what they see. But let me ask you this, because, you know, Reverend Jackson has often said, and I'm directing this to you, Attorney Hardaway, and to you, Alex, and to you, Attorney Hoffler, in this order, because I see, if not now, and a lot of our young Jewish activists and progressives who are saying, hey, my line in the sand is AIPAC. We have got to get their influence, their chokehold on American politics is just too much. Look, that's our line in the sand, but they're a reality. You're not going to undo their power overnight. Not going to happen. And you will lose your seat because you see they spent more than $20 million to get Jamal Bowman out. Did he make some mistakes? Sure. But they offered $20 million to Hill Harper to abandon his Senate run to run against Rashida Tlaib. I mean, you know, this is real. Mm-hmm. So what I want to find out from you, Tennessee State Representative Hardaway, where so much is going on, we saw them expel your three colleagues. And they targeted these two young black men in particular. But their white colleague, this woman, stood with them. But they were not going to punish her in the same way. It was just as plain as day. What don't we understand about the political process? Because you continue to say, hey, I'm not looking at the man, I'm looking at the plan. Thank you, Ossie Davis. I'm looking at an administration, not just a person. There's some other things at play here, because when I'm talking to these young people in particular, they when I ask them what do they see for the election, I just had this conversation like 2 days ago, CK and Alex, and these young men, Hispanic and black, they were helping me to finish up my move. And they're young entrepreneurs. I mean, they have their trucks and they are out here hustling and grinding every day. They said, "Oh, Trump." I was like, really? I mean, and the fact that they said it without blinking and without any defensiveness. Also, I was not coming from a place of judgment. Let me know, wow, something's going on. He said, hey, he ended the wars. I've got friends who are coming home now. Okay. I'm just telling you what they're saying. He said, and there was more money in these streets. So I'm not going to ride with Biden. We just said this to me a couple of days ago. I'm not doing it. So he said, nah, I'm cool with it, Miss Jackson. You all right? I said, look, honey, I was not judging you. I'm trying to find out what your thinking is. You know what I mean, Representative Hardaway? Because I don't go to the barbershops. What I'm hearing from a lot of people, activists in Chicago, where the migrant issue is in full bloom, where people are being denied marching permits, where we elected a man to occupy the seat of mayor, and we were enthusiastic as we could be last year. Now people talking about putting him out. Alex, you know this because they're mad with him about the migrant crisis and all kinds of stuff. It's like this stuff flipped. What don't we know about politics that we should know? Representative Hardaway.
Well, and it's very basic. There are things that we know as veterans that we have not done a good job in schooling our young folks. I'm progressive to a degree, but I consider myself to be a common sense Democrat. I want to look at what the goal is. I want to design my mission to accomplish the goal. We're in a new era, thanks to technology, where information can flow so quickly that it's not digested properly, it's not vetted properly by those who can help our young folks to understand it. We've got some candidates who are better at style than substance. We've just got a lot more going on now than we've had in the past. It's up to the veterans to make sure that our young folks really have a deep understanding of how this game works. You can play it, you can score, but if you're not playing defense, you might lose. You can play it, you can score, but your top scorer may foul out. There's so much that can go wrong. And the one thing that we haven't done as good a job as we could have is helping our young folks to understand how we actually structured our political struggle. We looked at the person, we gathered the pennies when we had them. We were able to develop a program and a personality to move forward. And then that last P, that's my 5P program, you had to perform. So we're just going to have to do a better job of educating our young folks on what it took to get us where we are. That internet can be your best friend or your worst enemy. And we're about to see that second stage of danger with AI, artificial intelligence. It's going to be our best friend or our worst danger because there's so many different ways it can go wrong. But we're back to what kind of leadership are we offering? Biden isn't responsible for me teaching the young folks in my community how to make decisions, whether it's a personal or political decision. That's my role. I have to help them to understand how to strategize, how to plan, what principles that we worked off of, which are time proven and over the years. We have to do a better job in our leadership to help our young folks to move them past the style so they can appreciate the substance of a Biden Harris team. I'm not just voting for Biden. I'm voting for Biden and Harris. I know that the VP has the ear of the president. I know that Biden Harris will have more of an understanding of the Black experience because Kamala Harris will be sitting there. I know this, and it's my job to communicate it to my community, communicate it to those who I mentor. We've got to do a better job. But no, there's no way in the world that and I'll say it because I have that freedom. I'm not voting for the devil. Now, Biden is no angel, but I'm not voting for a known devil. I know what Trump has done over the years. I know what his agenda is. I know how shallow he is. I know the demons who are waiting in the wings to take charge of his administration if he should, God forbid, be successful. We've got to tell that story so our young folks can understand the danger that they're not only could put us in, but could put generations to come in. As I said previously, these folks have figured out that if you put something in the Constitution, it takes a whole lot more to unravel that than to pass a new law. So these constitutional amendments that they put into the state constitutions are going to hamper the ability for us to do things on the federal level, because at the end of the day, the same, and we're back to post-Reconstruction 2.0, the same way that they use states' rights as a way to justify after the fact the Civil War. They're doing that now, saying it's all about states' rights. We want that to override the federal government in most instances. Why? Because they control more states. It's not that it's a fair assessment of the majority of Americans that are being represented. They have learned to play the game. They will control states. They will promote states' rights. And in that way, they will once again diminish the power of the majority by playing the game, the numbers games with how many states do we control. So I challenge everyone, keep up with the tactics. It's not just about the strategy for winning the election. It's about the tactics that they will use afterwards to control the population, and we will find ourselves, this is the world according to Hardaway again, we will find ourselves in a similar position that South Africa was in when a minority was controlling the economics and the political landscape in spite of the majority being people of color. That is where we could go if we have another administration headed by Donald Trump, because he came in dumb last time and did all kind of damage. His folk are going to come in organized this time. He'll still be dumb, but they'll be organized and they'll start putting things in place, unraveling things, and making it next to impossible for people of color to have the power, people of color being brown and black, folks in particular, to have the power that should come with a majority of the population.
Well, I would assert, I'd have to push back just a little bit, because I don't think that he's dumb. Someone who's remained in the public eye, at least he's crafty. For 5 decades, that's a hard thing to do. Not to mention the fact that they did what they came to do. They came to deconstruct the government, and that's what they have done. And that's what, when we're looking at Project 2025, I mean, that's what they've been doing. And they had a plan. My father said, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And we have got to come up with some other things. But Alex, you just heard Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been a line in the sand because we've been pushing on Gaza now for almost a year. It's closer to a year. It's been months, but come October, it'll be a year. We're just a few months away from that. Help me. You see that now, and we said this could happen. The closer we got to the summer, the conventions, the closer we got to November, the political realities can change because you're making other calculations. And as firm as many of your colleagues, and I've been working with you, genocide. I can't sign up for that. Now some people are saying, but I'm looking at another reality. And and I'm saying don't discount Robert Kennedy. I'm not saying that he could win, CK, but I'm saying he is a factor. When you can shave votes, let alone take chunks of them, that these are factors. Let's put it this way: in politics, I don't discount anyone. because I don't know what's going to happen. So you heard Tennessee State Representative Hardaway say, "Hey, wait a minute, I'm looking at realpolitik." So realpolitik, let me know. These are my choices. Am I excited? No, but I got choices. So what say you?
I'm pretty much in alignment with State Representative Hardaway. I think for me, the bigger thing is not so much that there are individuals who may, the day of the election, say, I'm going to, hold my nose and vote for Biden, or Trump is sort of we can't go back to that administration. We can't go back to, or move forward into what is Project 2025. And what we know is this sort of intentional takeover of our democratic norms and our democratic administrations and structures. My concern is that the lead up to the election day, you need organizers. You need people who are willing to knock doors and make phone calls and do the boots on the ground, because you have a lot of folks. The thing is, you have us talking and thinking about these things and talking politics for months. You have so many people in this world who do turn up to vote, but don't really think that deeply about politics up until really they're on the threshold of voting. So late October, early November. So you need people who are plugged in, who are passionate, who are enthusiastic, and you need them to be doing work in the months and weeks and months leading up to the election. And my concern is that the Biden administration has turned off people from filling those roles. You just don't see people diving in to do a lot of the grassroots ground level work that is required. And that was really essential to Biden's success in 2020. So that is my concern, is that's who you're losing. Is you're not losing, people. I mean, you might be losing some people who are just day of voters who decide they're going to vote for Trump instead. But my bigger concern is you're losing the people that take the time to make phone calls to their neighbors and say, hey, are you going to be turning up to vote? Do you need help registering to vote? Do you need a ride to the polls? You're losing people who want to step in and be election coordinators and election judges on the election day to make sure the machines are up and running and that people can get checked in and get their ballots. So I think that is where the Biden administration's inability to create enthusiasm, and where I think Gaza has really hurt them, because Gaza is such a monumental generational issue, because young people are plugged in on Instagram and TikTok. And so they're seeing these images coming out of Palestine every single day, and it is just horrifying. I saw a video last week of a girl whose jaw had been sort of bombed off, and she was still alive and she was still standing, and the pain she was in, you could see her pain through the screen. It was unlike anything I've ever seen. And so when you have images like that coming in on people's feeds, maybe the day of they'll wake up and they'll say, okay, I got to vote for Biden because we know Trump's policies on Gaza and Palestine are going to be just as bad, if not worse. But it does mean we are losing a lot of the momentum to get us there. And that's where my concern is. And that's where I think the Democratic Party has really failed the people.
Well, because they've done such great things in this administration, Attorney C.K. Hoffler. I mean, many people given not just a rightward tilt. I mean, Joe Biden's politics have been right wing. They have been in the party. And yet he pulled an LBJ. He came in and he governed way to the left of where he has been his whole career. I mean, this is a man who got us who reamed Anita Hill. She won't even accept his apology. Who gave us Clarence Thomas, someone who got the only black senator we had at the time kicked out because he wouldn't stand with him on busing as he had promised to do when he needed him to help him become the senator, Ed Brooke. So, I mean, I go back, even as a child, because these are the things that I see. But, as my father has often said, we're talking politics here, dear. this,
Yeah.
He said, we were in slavery longer than we have been free. We don't understand how this works, CK. And we need to understand how this actually works. I've got about 2 minutes for you, CK, and then a minute for you, Alex, and then a minute for you, Representative Hardaway. I can't wait to see you in Chicago. Representative Hardaway, you got to get here. CK Hoffman, I mean, really, because, look, everything is up for grabs, and we need to be talking with each other and not just virtually.
No,
It means a lot for us to see each other. CK,
no,
Attorney Hoffler, and when will you be on Court TV? Thank you.
Let me see. I was on Court TV last night. I'm going to be on Friday. Oh, Santita, you always catch me off guard. I have to look at my schedule. I'm going to be at Friday at 4 p.m.
Eastern. Okay, and everybody, Attorney Hardaway, Representative Hardaway and Alex Nelson, I'm going to send you her information. Put her out in your networks because we need her. I don't know why she doesn't have a show. Yeah, I'm putting it there. Yeah, what? You have not because you've asked not. That's what they taught me in Sunday school.
I really appreciate that, Santita. There are a lot of things that go into my time. As you know, I'm a trial lawyer. So my time commitments are very.
Yeah, they can pay you $1 million to do that. But I digress. And now you got a minute.
Well, okay. So we have to stand together in solidarity. We have to reach back, reach out, reach down, reach up to our young people because our young people are going to carry the day. We have to incentivize them because I'm concerned about what this means. I have kids for the next generation. They are looking at this through a different lens because, as Alex said, they look at TikTok, they look at Instagram. That's how they are governed. They don't watch the news. They don't watch these programs as much. They wake up and they look at their phone. And that's how they determine what they're going to do. So just as State Representative Hardaway said, we have to educate our young folks in our community to ensure that they are looking at this through a more global lens, because so much is at stake. So Santita, but I think the last word I'll say is people just need to vote their conscience. And at the end of the day, I do think a lot of people are going to make up their minds when they get to the polls. We have to give them the information so they can make an informed decision.
And we got to get them to the polls because that's part of the issue. We voted at the black community. 74% of us voted 2 to 4 years ago. Now they say that they're estimating the numbers are down to 62%. Because black folks have taken a lot of hits and there's a lot of disappointment. And I'm not saying that we're silly and emotional. There's a lot of anger out here too. And I think that's why I continue to bring it up, Alex, because if we don't bring it up, I mean, look, if you got cancer, don't give me NyQuil. I need chemo, right?
Yeah.
So the last minute for you.
Thank you. Yeah, I am in alignment that I think that, voting is incredibly important, especially because it's not like there's just one line on the ballot, president, and you go home. There are a lot of they're going to be on every single ballot in this country, down ballot candidates that will need our support. There will be resolutions and local municipal issues that people need to turn up for. So I'm always going to be advocating for people to vote, and they should not divest themselves from the system entirely. And I hope that President Biden really leans on the positives of the team he's built and really turns to them and utilizes them. I am concerned that he's, letting his ego sort of take charge at this moment. But I really wish that he would highlight that he's got an incredible Vice President, Kamala Harris, standing with him and say, if there is a concern about my mental ability into this administration or my health in this administration, we've got someone here who's primed and ready to take over and they're, the future of the Democratic Party. So I think that he could be doing a lot more to assuage people's fears. and concerns. But I think that doesn't change the underlying premise that come November, we're going to wake up on Wednesday, November 6th, and somebody is going to be president-elect of the United States of America. And the reality is that we only have two candidates at this moment, two viable candidates. And of those two, I would certainly prefer it be Joe Biden over Donald Trump.
1 minute for you, Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway. And yes, we're waiting for you to come to Chicago in August. Yes.
I can't wait to get there. Santita.
Thank you.
And I'll agree with my fellow guests that we've got to do a better job of educating our young folks on what the real choices are. When I look at the ticket, I'm looking at the VP. I don't know what's going to be in the spot, the second place with Donald Trump, but I can promise you it won't be anybody that will share my values and principles. So I have to look at the Biden-Harris. I'm about to make Kamala come first anyway, aren't I?
Yeah, yes,
but
you
the
are.
Biden Harris.
You know that was Freudian. I'm not mad at you.
Yeah, and I look at this as not just a vote for Biden, but a vote for an agenda and a vote for the next Democratic president, Kamala Harris. So we've got to do a better job of messaging to our young folks on how we got where we are, how we'll get to the next level, that you cannot be a one-issue voter. You can't be a one source researcher for your votes. You have to make an intelligent vote, and this is the position that we find ourselves in as trusted messengers, is being able to give that full scope of information to our young folks and to help them digest it. We can't let them get everything unfiltered off of the internet. We're going to have to do our job as trusted messengers, as veterans in this game, to help to educate our young folks on how to cast a smart vote. But the Biden-Harris team has to do their part. They've got to change the narrative so that we can look at the real difference in the candidates. Anyone that looks at a shyster like the former president and then compares it to the team that we have with Biden-Harris, why would you even consider going up with the Trump anybody in the second slot? I don't get it. And I'm going to do my best to make sure that my sphere of influence considers the Biden-Harris ticket and understands what the future is and how dark and dire it could be if we had a prepared Trump team to come into office. That is the existential threat that keeps me awake at night and wakes me up early in the morning. All
right, everybody. Keep it locked right here on the Santita Jackson Show. We have more to discuss. The Blitz primary. The oligarchs are taking over. The funders of the party are saying, hey, you know what? We don't like what happened in this debate. And we've been hearing the whispers about the president's health for some time. And so now is our opportunity to get him out. So who's the baller shot caller in the Democratic Party? Is it the voters or is it the funders? Stay right here on the Santita Jackson Show. Go over to the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook and Santita at Santita J on Twitter. X, and then the Santita Jackson Show on YouTube. Let us talk about it. Back in just a minute.